Day 459. The Ukrainians have increased the frequency and intensity of precision strikes against Russian bases in the Zaporizhia region. If earlier the Ukrainians carried out about 10 attacks a week, now they carry out about 10 attacks a day. The most destructive attacks occurred in Mariupol. Local residents today reported hearing multiple explosions near the airfield. The images indicate the activation of the Russian anti-aircraft defense, and according to unconfirmed reports, the Russians shot down one of the 4 missiles. This is the second consecutive day of attacks. Since yesterday the Ukrainians attacked Mariupol with 2 Storm Shadow missiles. The targets of the attack were 2 facilities on the grounds of the Azovstal industrial complex. One facility was used for the residence of hundreds of soldiers, while the other was used as an equipment store. More information has become known today, as some Russian sources have expressed their discontent and criticized the Russian command for not having adapted to the new realities of the war, while indicating that 250 special operations soldiers and Marines died after yesterday's attack. It is also noted that a week ago the Ukrainians killed more than 200 soldiers in a similar attack against the facilities near the airfield, so the figure was slightly higher than the initial Ukrainian estimates of 150 soldiers. The fact that in just these 2 consecutive attacks the Ukrainians managed to take out almost 500 soldiers convinced many Russian analysts that many local residents have been actively spying for a long period of time, which is why they argue that more should be applied. Counterintelligence measures as soon as possible. Another powerful impact from Storm Shadow occurred in Berdyansk. The explosion was seen from villages located more than 10 kilometers from the coast. Some sources reported that the target of the attack was the Hamiki Recreation Center, and other sources suggested that the target of the attack was the Azov factory. However, both versions agree that the Ukrainians attacked areas of concentration of forces. The Ukrainians also continue to actively use HIMARS. In recent days, the Ukrainians have carried out at least 3 HIMARS attacks on Russian military targets in and around Donetsk. The target of the most recent attack was a former institute that the Russians used for military purposes. The target of the second attack was the Twin Towers, or more accurately, anti-tank missile systems, electronic warfare systems, and reconnaissance systems, which were conveniently placed on the roof of these tall buildings. The target of the third attack was an ammunition depot for Russian air defense systems near Mospane. Other sources also reported that Ukrainian artillery teams are also attacking the towns and cities closest to the line of contact. Some Ukrainian fighters stated that today the HIMARS rockets also hit Russian targets in Nikolsky, Melitopol and Tokmak. The Ukrainians are carrying out minor attacks outside the borders of Ukraine. Since the Ukrainians agreed not to use HIMARS and Storm Shadow to hit Russian territories, for these purposes the Ukrainians are using different models of kamikaze drones. The first drone attack took place today in the Pskov region. 2 drones tried to attack an oil pipeline near Hyrogino, however they missed and hit the regional administration building. The second drone strike took place in the Tver region. 2 drones attempted to attack an Andriapol oil pumping facility, which is one of the biggest industrial assets in the region. This time, the drones were much closer to the target, but they only hit a few workshops instead of the oil rigs. The third attack occurred in the Krasnodar region. 2 drones unsuccessfully tried to reach one of the factories located in the northeastern part of the city. 3 other attacks have occurred today in the Belgorod region. Here the Ukrainians hit a thermal power station in Belgorod, a small gas pipeline and electricity grid in Shevakina, and even killed 2 officers who were traveling in a car too close to the border. In summary, it is clear that right now the Ukrainians are focused on the areas of concentration of the enemy forces, and for the moment their main targets are the headquarters of the most trained and prepared Russian forces, such as pilots, Marines and members of special operations. In parallel, the Ukrainians are using their drones to attack critical targets far from supply lines, particularly those related to fuel. Although drones do not have the same success rate as Storm Shadow missiles, since drones are cheap and can be launched frequently, the Ukrainians managed to destroy up to 20 fuel-related facilities in the last month alone. The continuation of this campaign guarantees that the Russians will accumulate a multitude of personnel in supply